The broadcast of the regular meeting of the Business Inspections and Zoning Committee will now begin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Business Inspections and Zoning Committee. For today, August 18th, I'm Lisa Goodman. I'm chair of this committee. As we begin, I'll note for the record that this meeting has remote participation from members of the City Council and City staff as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021 due to the declared local public health emergency. At this time, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify a quorum for this meeting.
Councilmember Wright.
Present.
Gordon.
Here.
Fletcher.
Here.
Ellison.
Present.
Schrader.
Here.
Chair Goodman.
Present.
There's 6 ayes.
There are 6 members present. Before we begin the meeting, I would like to wish happy birthday to Councilmember Schrader. Although we're not with you in person to say happy birthday, I know everyone on the committee as well as the staff wish you a very happy and most important healthy birthday at this very important time in the world of COVID. So thank you for being on the call today on your birthday. We have the consent agenda in front of us. The consent agenda is items 4 through 12. They include the liquor license approvals for August 18th, the gambling license approvals, a rezoning at Up Campus Holding at 800 and 808 14th Avenue Southeast and 1415 8th Street Southeast. We have a rezoning at item number 7, which is a rezoning at 1800 and 1806 Como Avenue Southeast. We have a rezoning at 1050 13th Avenue Northeast. A street vacation for the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board for a portion of 39th Street West and Colfax Avenue South. We have denying the request to do a conservation district and establish that on the Ivy, Zenith, and 32nd Consortium, or let's see, Street Area Conservation District. Item number 11 is a short-term rental ordinance. This is referring to staff, as well as item number 12, which is a referral to staff on the subject matter of a university area overlay district. With that, I don't believe any members of the committee would like to pull any of these items for discussion. Because none of the items have been pulled for discussion, nor have we posted that anyone would be allowed to speak on items that are not public hearings, I'm not going to be able to accommodate anyone who'd like to speak to any of these issues. I realize there might be people on the call who would like to speak to them, but without anyone on the committee having any questions or comments and without public notice, I don't feel comfortable allowing anyone to speak on these issues. So I'll ask one more time if anyone on the committee would like to pull items 4 through 12 for discussion. Seeing none, I'm going to move the consent agenda and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Fletcher.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There's 6 ayes.
That carries and the consent agenda is approved. With that, we'll move to our public hearing agenda. We have 2 public hearings today, starting with item number 1, which is a on-sale wine and strong beer license at 600 Portland Avenue South.
Good afternoon, Chair Goodman and fellow committee members. I am Enrique Velazquez, Manager of Licenses and Consumer Services, presenting an application from Compass Group USA, Inc., doing business as Eurus Dining Services, located at 600 Portland Avenue in Ward 7. This report was prepared by Inspector Michelle Harvett. This applicant requests an on-sale wine with strong beer and no live entertainment license. Proposed hours of operation will be 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. They have indoor seating for 57 in their 1,414 square foot space, located on the ground floor of the Thrivent building with no outdoor seating. On July 27th, 324 public hearing notices were sent to residents and property owners within 400 feet of the premises. Notices were also sent to the Easttown Business Partnership, Downtown Minneapolis Neighborhood Association, Elliott Park Neighborhood Inc., Warehouse District Business Association, and to Councilmember Goodman. Notices were also posted at the Thrivent building and surrounding residential buildings. We've received 2 responses from the community, both in support of this application. A review of 311 calls and police calls found no significant issues concerning the business in the last several years. At this time, the Licenses and Consumer Services Division recommends approval of an on-sale wine with strong beer and no entertainment license for US dining services. This concludes my report, and at this time I'll stand for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair Goodman, I think you're on mute.
That's weird. Seeing no questions for Mr. Velasquez on item number 1, we will open the public hearing. I'll ask the clerk if anyone is signed up to speak on item number 1.
One speaker, a Chad Hexum applicant.
Okay, Mr. Hexum, you should press, let's see if I can remember this, *6. Is that correct?
Yes, can you hear me? This is
We
Chad.
can, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. Great. I'm just here to field any questions about the license. We've been working with Thriven. We were provided food service in their building at 625, and we are just opening this mostly actually coffee shop and pizza and sandwich cafe there, and it should go from 6 in the morning to 8 at night, like I said, and it'll be light beer and wine.
Well, that's terrific. Thank you so much for being on the call today. Is there anyone else signed up to speak to item number 1?
No other speakers have signed up for item 1.
Given that there are no other speakers who have signed up, we will close the public hearing and I will call on Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair Goodman. I will move approval of this item.
Approval of item number 1 has been moved. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Reich,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Fletcher,
Aye.
Ellison,
Aye.
Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
There are 6 ayes, so that carries and the motion is approved. We'll move on to item number 2, which is a sidewalk cafe license for 7 Corners Coffee at 1851 Washington Avenue South. And I will call on Mr. Velasquez to make that report.
Thank you, Chair Goodman and committee members. So I am presenting an application for Wooddale Church doing business as 7 Corners Coffee located at 1851 South Washington Avenue in Ward 6. This report was prepared by Inspector Sheila Larson. The applicant is currently licensed as a restaurant and has operated at this location since 2019. Additionally, the applicant has maintained a temporary expansion of premises for their outdoor space since June 6, 2020. And the applicant requests a sidewalk cafe license. There is no change in the hours of operation, which are 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. They have indoor seating for 67 and outdoor seating for 6 with the temporary sidewalk expansion. On July 27th, public hearing notices were sent to residents and property owners within 300 feet of the premises. Multi-unit dwellings were posted. Notices were sent to the Cedar Riverside Community Council, West Bank Business Association, and the Ward 6 Council Office. We have received no responses from the community about this application. Now, this location is within the U of M West Bank area, just across the street from University of Minnesota Law School and a few blocks from the Humphrey School of Public Affairs. No 311 calls have been received by licensing since the establishment opened in 2019, and 911 calls associated with that specific parcel have been associated with other businesses or properties in the area or happened outside of the established hours of operation. At this time, the Licenses and Consumer Services Division recommends approval of a sidewalk cafe license for 7 Corners Coffee. This concludes my report, and I'll stand for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Velasquez? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 2, which is a sidewalk cafe license, and I'd ask the clerk if there is anyone to speak. It looks like there is one person in line, and I would invite you now, Luke, to press *6 so we can hear you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it. I'm a staff member of Wooddale Church, helping to operate our Seven Corners coffee shop. As the report mentioned, we've had our cafe tables set up since we got that temporary permit in June, and all is going very, very well. And so this is no change to the way we've been doing our setup, anything like that. Just looking for more permanent license to do so. We'd be happy to take any questions that anyone has, though.
Thank you for your testimony and for doing something happy and wonderful during this time when COVID has kept everyone inside. We appreciate you being here today.
Of course.
I'll ask the clerk if there's anyone else who has signed up to speak to this issue.
No further speakers on item 2.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Then we will close the public hearing on item 2, and I will call on Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair Goodman. I'll move approval of this item as well.
Approval has been moved of item number 2. We will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Reich,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Fletcher,
Aye.
Ellison,
Aye.
Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 6 ayes.
That carries, and that motion is approved. We'll now move on to our quasi-judicial public hearing, which is a public hearing for item number 3. This is an item submitted by Matt Abens regarding the Zoning Board of Adjustment's decision to deny 2 variances at 2209 and 2211 Portland Avenue. I would invite the staff to give a presentation.
Thank you, Chair Goodman, members of the committee. As you mentioned, this application was heard before the Zoning Board of Adjustment on July 23rd. The initial application was for 3 variances to vary the established front yard, to vary the interior side yard, and to allow a detached accessory structure which is not located entirely to the rear of the principal structure. All 3 of them were denied by the Board of Adjustment, adopting staff findings. And the applicant has appealed 2 of those 3 variances, the side yard and to permit an accessory structure in front of the principal structure. The front yard denial was not appealed. The applicant has agreed to shift the garage back approximately 1 foot in order to comply with that string line regulation. The subject properties, 2209 and 2211 Portland Avenue, are obviously on Portland Avenue, mid-block, just south of 22nd Street East. They are 2 separate parcels which have a single structure that spans across their common lot line. So it's a duplex with 1 dwelling unit on each side, referred to as a party wall duplex. Individually, the lots are 3,149 square feet, but together they comprise 6,298 square feet. Each parcel has a curb cut and a non-conforming surface parking stall located in the front of the house. The proposal before you is to construct a detached garage, as I mentioned, in front of the principal structure and across the common property line in between the 2 parcels. The zoning code allows for a garage which spans across property lines, but only where it is located entirely within the rear 40 feet of the parcel, hence the variance for the interior side yard setback between the 2 properties. The proposed garage is 720 square feet, which if this was one single parcel, that would exceed the size of the garage allowed, but each parcel, regardless of size, is allowed 676 square feet of garage space. So the 720 square feet, which is evenly distributed across the 2 parcels, is a conforming size. The height also meets the zoning code standards. If we could advance to the next slide, please. So the first variance before you is for an accessory structure, which is located not entirely to the rear of the principal structure. Staff finds that practical difficulties to this requirement do exist on the site. The existing principal structure was constructed in 1977, and as I mentioned, crosses over the common property line. It is also located within 4 feet of the bounding property lines on the north and the south. The minimum width for a driveway is 8 feet, so there's not enough space to kind of snake a driveway around the house for to locate parking in the back. Additionally, the site is not served by a public alley, and the arrangement of the site and the lack of alley constitute a practical difficulty with regards to siting a garage in front of the house. With regards to the second finding, staff and the Board of Adjustment found that this proposal does not meet the spirit and intent of the ordinance or of the comprehensive plan. The intent of the ordinance regulating accessory structures and requiring that they be located to the rear is so that they are accessory in use, that they are kind of subordinate in nature. The proposed garage would really dominate the street presence for this site, kind of basically blocking off the entirety of the house itself. The garage would not meet requirements that we have for principal structures on their street frontage, things like windows and active functions that are required to provide good urban design and natural surveillance. The city has adopted crime prevention through environmental design principles, referred to as CEPTED. The proposed garage blocks natural surveillance, which is one of the sort of the core principles of CEPTED and the city's adopted CEPTED policies, by blocking the windows and also creating sort of a dead space between the house and the proposed garage. Several of the goals in the comprehensive plan are not being met by this proposal, including a focus on the concept of eyes on the street, which is very similar to a natural surveillance. The comprehensive plan also incentivizes designing sites, landscaping, and buildings to promote natural observation, and then goes on to encourage existing developments are held to these principles to the same standards as new construction. With regards to finding number 3, staff and the Board of Adjustment found that the proposal is not in keeping with the essential character of the locality, which is varied but is predominantly predates kind of automobile development. You don't see a lot of sort of visible garage doors, and where you do, they are on corner lots. The decrease in visibility created by enclosing these surface parking spaces does have the potential to increase the likelihood of conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians, and as I discussed previously, does not meet CEPTED principles, and so could potentially have a negative impact on health, safety, and welfare. You can advance to the next slide, please. So variance C, and just as a reminder, variance B was not appealed. So variance C to the interior side yard between the 2 properties. Staff finds that there are practical difficulties with regards to this requirement. Individually, each lot is 25 feet wide. The narrowness of those lots constitutes a practical difficulty with regards to a 5-foot setback on either side of that common property line. This specific proposal meets the spirit and intent of the ordinance. The parcels are legally 2 separate parcels, but they definitely read as a single unified development. And so reducing the setback between the common property line, or reducing the setback for the common property line between the 2 parcels does meet the intent of providing for orderly development, minimizing conflicts in land uses, and providing access to light, air, and open space. And with regards to the third finding, the specific request for a variance to the interior side yard does not necessarily not meet the third finding, but the proposal as a whole, staff and the Board of Adjustment felt does not meet that third finding. Staff's recommendation is that this committee deny the appeal, upholding staff and the decision of the Board of Adjustment, and I am available for questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Brandt on her very thorough presentation? Thank you for that presentation. Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Chair Goodman. Ms. Brandt, could you talk a little bit about the curb cuts? If there's any new ones, if they're getting rid of any, and just kind of the status of that?
Thank you, Chair Goodman, Councilmember Schrader. To my knowledge, there are going to be no changes to the curb cuts as they're existing today.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing. And I know that Matt is signed up to speak, and then we'll let him speak and then see if there's anyone else who is signed up to speak. So I will ask the applicant, Matt Abens, if he would like to proceed. You press *6 in order to unmute.
Hello. Yes, I would. Are you able to hear me now?
We can, sir. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yes, so thanks for the time today. I would like to speak. Yeah, thanks for taking consideration with this appeal. Like Alyssa mentioned, I do not wish to appeal the front yard setback. That was not my intent to apply for that variance. But in terms of the side yard setback and the detached structure in the front of the property, I would like to formally appeal those. And based on this Alyssa's, I guess, commentary, you know, it's easy, both her and the staff and the zoning board agree that there are practical difficulties and no other physical opportunity for this property to have a garage other than the proposed location. You know, based on that, with no alley and no other area, it is the only feasible location for the garage. And like Alyssa mentioned, you know, the neighborhood is very unique in terms of the properties that are there. So there are churches, there are mosques, there are schools, there are surface parking lots, there are multi-level apartment buildings, all within a handful of blocks, as well as freestanding garages on corner lots. So I feel that having a freestanding garage in the front of the property in the only physical location that it could be would not be that, you know, unique to the neighborhood based on all of the other unique types of buildings that are there. And I would also like to point out that in the city of Minneapolis, there are numerous properties that have detached garages between the street and the house in other unique circumstances like mine, where there's a very narrow and long lot with no alley. I did provide some examples on East 60th Street in South Minneapolis, where there are, you know, 5 or 6 properties all concurrent that have that same look. And, you know, there have been no confirmed, you know, safety issues, no issues of vehicles backing into the street that I've been aware of. So I would actually propose that it wouldn't create any additional, you know, safety risk of a car backing from the driveway or backing out of a garage. It is still the same, you know, visibility. In this case, building the garage will actually eliminate a number of trees and vegetation that are raised and obstructing, you know, the driveway and the street and sidewalk right now. So I feel that actually this construction will actually enhance the visibility of the area. And in terms of natural surveillance and direct sight lines, based on the garage location, there will actually remain direct sight lines between the front door and the gates that go around the side of the property, all the way to the sidewalk and the street. So as people are exiting or entering the house or walking up to it, there will be direct sight lines all the way to the sidewalk and street. In addition, this is a very unique primary structure in which that it is 2.5 stories tall, so nearly 34 feet. So there are front-facing windows that will overlook the garage all the way to the street and the sidewalk, providing natural surveillance. And then in addition, the limited space between the garage and the house that is roughly 10 feet has natural surveillance between both of the adjacent properties, as they have side-facing windows that will cover that area to further provide natural surveillance. And I think one of the biggest issues, you know, in this neighborhood, it is a very diverse and urban area, which I have loved living in for the past 10 years. But one, you know, concern for the property owners and the residents of this area is safety. You know, it is an area of higher crime and break-ins and that type of thing. So a very important thing to deter crime, I feel, is, you know, secure structures on the property, whether that's the house or the residence or a shed or a garage to store possessions. I think a key component of deterring theft and crime is having a secure area to store possessions, that are out of sight and out of reach for criminal activity. So I feel this garage would enhance the crime and safety in this community as I look to, invest in the neighborhood further. And I would also add, both with this appeal and the original zoning hearing, there have been no public comments made by adjacent property owners, other neighbors, or any of the neighborhood groups that indicated that they felt this garage would present any sort of detriment to the community, whether that's health, safety, or welfare. So based on this, I feel that the appeal should be overturned and the garage, should be allowed based on the unique circumstances where there's no other physical opportunity, and just to further my commitment and investment in the neighborhood. I am open to any questions that exist.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I'll see if there are any questions from members of the committee. Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matt, I appreciate your comments about, increasing the sight lines and trying to make it more safe for pedestrians. But in your comment, you talked about cutting down trees and shrubs, and just for me, that's a little concerning. The city does work and is trying to work a little harder about our soil health and maintaining all we can for stormwater retention and doing all we can to combat climate change. So I think I'd like to hear a little bit more about what your plan is for existing trees and for stormwater management on the property.
Yes, definitely. So yes, there are a handful of pine trees on site now where the proposed garage would be located that, are fairly significantly obstructing the view from the house to the street and the sidewalk right now and are becoming overgrown. So my proposal would be to cut those down in order to place the garage on site. But as part of that, I would have be a very, aware plan of, providing, landscaping that retains the groundwater and the soil strength while also, being cautious of visual impacts, as cars are exiting or entering the garage, or, providing natural surveillance out to the street. In addition, we would look to, plant trees or shrubs in the rear of the property or in between the house and the garage as possible, as we, my wife and I are very concerned about the environment and global warming as well. And obviously we want to have a very presentable house that, has shrubs and bushes and trees and flowers as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk if there's anyone else who has signed up to speak to this issue.
No further speakers on item 3.
Okay, thank you for your testimony, Matt. I will close the public hearing and call on Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would be for, I'd make a motion to approve the appeal. I think this one is a little bit more questionable just because we are missing, as of this hearing, a council member in the area. But I think it is very good to hear that, there has not been opposition in the neighborhood to this. I also I agree with the appellant that there is a lot of difficulties in making anything else work on the property.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Schrader in front of us that notes the practical difficulties evident, and I would assume that Councilmember Schrader also would ask the staff to provide a findings of fact if necessary to support this decision. Yes, okay, so Councilmember Schrader's motion is to grant the appeal and direct staff to prepare findings of fact based on the conversation that was held in committee today. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on Councilmember Schrader's motion? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Rick.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Fletcher.
Aye.
Ellison.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There's 6 ayes.
That motion passes, and we have no further business before us. So without objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for participating today, and a very happy birthday to Councilmember Schrader.